Hello and welcome to Foreign and Domestic Unfiltered Podcast. I'm your host, Ramon Mile, back with some more analysis for you to chew on. Sorry for the little fake out there. I went live a minute ago and little pump fake, just making sure everybody's on their toes. Technical difficulties. Streamlabs OBS. Fucking crazy. Right, so this is episode 26, titled The Obstinance of Labor. Little housekeeping, coming up later this month, the 29th to be exact, we have everyone's favorite future legislator, Omar Mcgill, returning to the show once again to make the case for why you should come out and vote for him this November after his dominant victory in the primary. Now, Omar has been a fan favorite, and his return marks a significant milestone for the show, our first repeat guest. And hopefully we can continue the trend once he's actually in office. But, we'll see. We'll see. We'll see. One more piece of housekeeping. So we appreciate all of our listeners, and our analytics show that the overwhelming majority of the audience is from podcasting formats, this is great because that's sort of the medium that we'd hope to have the most growth in. But if you'd like to help the show continue to grow, please follow us on social media, like and share our posts on Facebook, and subscribe to the YouTube page. We don't have a producer, so all the editing, marketing, and booking of guests is done by me and Patter. So if we can get it large enough to the point that, we have some monetization, even any, I would hope to hire a part-time producer, freeing me up to produce a higher volume of content. And if that's something you guys would like to see, help us grow, tell your friends about the podcast, where they can find it, and keep an eye out for Patreon support coming on the horizon. But all right, let's get into the show. If you recall episode 14, we spent episode 14, which was, I believe, unemployment benefits, and I can't remember the title now, but if you go back, look through the through our catalog there, it was very similar to today's episode, but from a different angle. But yeah, we spent our time discussing the perceived labor shortage, the obvious shift in the American worker's mindset, and the overall establishment's complete inability or unwillingness, or both, to correctly assess and respond to this situation. Now, that was all the way back in May, and here we are 5 months later, and we're just starting to see the dawn of realization set in for a lot of these people. That is mostly because labor has forced attention to be paid by way of a huge number of strikes authorized this year from unions seeking more equitable terms, but also bolstered by the crescendo of logistical supply issues plaguing the world at the current moment. And let's not also forget the issues presented by the pandemic in the workplace, such as vaccine mandates, quarantining rules, and the like. Now, all of these things have happened in a rush and sort of convalesced into the perfect storm to reach a sort of mini general strike. And it couldn't be happening in a more organic way. That is to say, this wasn't a conscious design born out of any type of overall political solidarity within the working class, but rather an inevitable car crash of capitalism caused by the complete wearing away of the brake pads. And we're watching the balance come due on a system that has been consistently hollowing itself out for the last 50 years. Nonstop labor outsourcing by American companies, stagnant wages, completely failing to keep up with productivity, and ever-increasing consumerist demand inside of an economy that no longer makes anything. Now, this is a recipe for disaster that it couldn't have been written better by a novelist if they tried. Let's be honest here. So let's stick to the supply side of the economy for the first leg of analysis here. I'm sure everyone's seen the hair on fire segments of TV news about Christmas on the verge of being canceled and put your orders in now or Timmy might not get that new toy he's been wanting. It's been so funny to watch because this is literally like the apocalypse for a lot of people in this country. I personally feel like America could do with a little scaling back on the Christmas consumerist madness, but I was thinking about it some more earlier today, and I realized that those in the media framing this as disastrous are actually correct, but not for the reasons that they think they are. Access to numerous and cheap goods is literally the last thing left on offer in this system. It's the crux of appeal to those who live in empires like this one. Healthcare has been off the table for those who don't have the means for the longest time. Perceived rights on both the left and the right are being taken: gun rights, abortion access, vaccine mandates. The law and order types feel like the quote unquote inmates have been running the prison, as they love to say. And Congress hasn't even been able to pass a single piece of substantial legislation since Biden took office. It's madness all around. But then, the coup de grace, Americans aren't even going to be able to have their Christmas treats. Oh, no. Oh, man. I mean, hey, I know some people, are really actually seriously worried about this. I just, to me, it's no different than, like a lot of the hair on fire shit, like when Trump was president. It's like, man, the only thing you could do is kind of laugh at it, because as much as all the bickering and everything going like back and forth, you see people like dunking on Pete Buttigieg because he's on like paternity leave and he's transportation secretary, and they're like, why isn't he fixing this? No one can fix. It's a fucking global issue. Okay. There are too many hands. I shouldn't say hands. There are too many mouths that are just wide open, just gluttonously sucking up profits and shipping from all this. But we'll get into it a little more, but, yeah, so it's crazy. But no, like the main point I'm trying to get to here is like nothing screams failure like empty shelves. Okay. And if you believe the hype around all this topic, that may be very well where we're headed, not only for luxury items like Christmas gifts, but there's wide reporting of food shortages as well, evidenced by skyrocketing prices. Now, whether this is a true or artificial food shortage is yet to be seen. And we all know how the food industry can play games around inflation. But again, just like in my previous analysis episodes, what's important here is the perception around these things more than the reality. Okay. We briefly touched on some inflation talk in previous episodes, but if you dive into the history of times of inflation, America really never experienced hyperinflation for any long period of time, but briefly. But it's very important how the consumer perceives what's happening more so than what the actual reality is more often than not. Obviously, when you're talking about countries like Venezuela, where there's artificial inflation and things like that imposed because of monetary issues, that's a completely different ballgame. We are not experiencing that right now. Anyone who's trying to frame it that way is lying to you. The American dollar is the strongest it's been since the pandemic began. So it's really yet to be seen what the actual cause is. But I mean, it's pretty basic economics of it's supply and demand is wildly outweighing supply, and various reasons that we can diagnose why this issue is happening on the supply side, but we'll get into some of them. But there's for sure just it's such a massive problem that even like I can't sit here and act like, even with the research I did for this episode, I can't sit here and like, oh, this is exactly what. No one can. It's too massive of a scope of an issue. Okay. And there isn't enough collective action anywhere around, there isn't enough collective action globally to actually be able to spearhead this issue. And, some people are profiting from it. So that always gets in the way. But yeah, so what we do know is that global shipping has slowed to a crawl for a litany of reasons, most of them previously forecasted correctly as hiccups in a system that's still playing catch up in reaction to pandemic era realities. And also in the mix, like I said before, is just good old-fashioned price gouging. That's always going to play a role, folks. This is capitalism. Now, weeks ago, CEO Isaac Larian of MGA Entertainment, a privately held company that owns and distributes Little Tykes, Rainbow High dolls, Bratz dolls, and LOL Surprise. That's like the biggest thing right now on my daughter's Christmas list. Loves the LOL, folks. So the CEO, Isaac Larian, he told CNN weeks ago that, quote, there's going to be a major shortage of toy products this year. The demand is going to be there. What is not going to be there is the product to fill the demand. He admitted to being, quote, very frustrated with shipping container companies such as Maersk, who he and other toy industry insiders accused of taking advantage of the global shortage of freight containers, or the global shortage on freight containers, by dramatically raising their prices. He continues, quote, the container that cost $3,200 last year is now $22,000, Larian said. The installation of raw material and labor has gone up exponentially. We've seen a 23% increase in cost of product in China without the logistics. That is going to translate to higher prices with retail. So anyone with half a brain can recognize this outcome as an inevitability somewhere along the line in an American system that left behind a manufacturing economy where the middle class was established through good-paying jobs, creating a large chunk of our own consumer goods. We left that behind for a service economy where today the diminished in size middle class consists largely of white collar jobs, and the average unskilled, quote unquote, unskilled American worker works for a retailer subsisting on scraps. So, as with most things, to reach a boiling point these last 2 years, like our healthcare system, public unrest, and various political crises, this was exacerbated by the pandemic. But the key thing to understand here is that these crisis points would have come even without COVID-19. We cannot allow the enormity of the pandemic to excuse away the failure of these systems and return back to business as usual without doing the analysis, okay? Very important, and that is what we're going to do here. But now we'll pivot to the fun part here. We'll pivot to the fun part. Labor's position in this current economy. This is where, I love it so much, folks. Let me wet my whistle real quick. Now, unless you've been under a rock this year, you've had to have noticed the massive volume of strikes authorized by organized labor, the huge pushes for unionization in previously non-collective workplaces, and general discontent within America's lowest tiered earners. Over 100,000 workers have been on strike just this month, okay? Folks are calling it Striketober, all right? Adding to the total of hundreds of thousands of other striking workers so far this year. And that's not even counting walkouts, okay, folks? Non-unionized places where people are holding a strike, but technically it's not a strike if you're not a union already. So from Nabisco to John Deere to the International Alliance of Theatrical Stage Employees, no industry has been safe from the wrath of the disaffected American worker. And it's not without good reason. The IATSE workers have reported frequent 12-hour shifts with no breaks for food. Okay? Insanity. That was a big part of what they're bargaining for, is like, hey, can we just have fucking breaks here? Wild. Go read and look into that. I'm not going to get in crazy detail because I have a lot of stuff to go over here. But the John Deere workers, they watched their company have earnings at a record $1.79 billion just last quarter, only to be met with a contract offer that slashes their benefits going forward and no meaningful raises. Now, I mean, absolute insanity. Record profits, companies coming to the table with bullshit offers. I mean, it really is insulting. You know what I mean? And not so much insulting, just like, this is what we think you're worth, but like, it's insulting to the worker for them to act like, especially people in unions, large unions. It's insulting for them to come to the table with this type of shit, like, and then literally like be like no to the point where you have to go on strike for it, to be like, we're actually going to take away benefits that you had. You're not going to have them going forward. We're going to give you a worse deal after everyone knows you're making all this money. I mean, and not to mention knowing what's happening in the labor market. I mean, it really is shocking that, I mean, I get it. Like you're negotiating. You're not going to like come out and like give a good offer at the beginning, but I mean, it really is, to me, it's just disgusting. You know what I mean? Like those guys just brought you those record profits. Okay? They stayed and worked during all of this. You know what I mean? Like you're going to try to slash their benefits? I mean, it really is. It's just incredible, guys. Like the hubris that this shit takes. And hey, I mean, I get it. A lot of these companies are publicly traded. I'm not sure if John Deere is, but when you're a publicly traded company, it is your obligation legally by law to make the most profit you can for your shareholders, right? So it puts people that would normally be able to do this simple math, like on the board or whatever, that make these types of decisions, directly pits them against the workers, because it's like, well, we need to try to give them the least so we can have the most through our, stock ownership, options, dividends, and the like. It's really just at its core a completely defunct system, especially when moments like COVID or any other time of crisis in an economy come raise their head. It's really not ideal. So now I want to take a second to acknowledge my own foresight on this topic from the aforementioned week 14 episode. Yes, I'm going to take a small bow here. Me and Patter, we referenced this on an earlier episode. We've been hitting shit on the money, folks. Go back and listen to my analysis on this from back in May, and it's already coming to fruition. Over 4.3 million Americans quit their jobs in August. The September jobs report was absolutely disgusting, and there's no end in sight, as the supply side of the economy is completely leveraged in this situation. Now, I'm no wizard. This was just like the easiest thing in the world to see if you aren't blinded by the propaganda that the media regularly spoon feeds us, right? My theory was millions of people had weeks, if not months, across the last year and a half where they stayed home because of the pandemic. Some people worked, a lot of people didn't. They were just home and had loads of free time to consider, reevaluate what matters to them in life, analyze their current career and workplace, all while watching the wheels fucking completely fall off of this country, right? So this psychological break was obviously going to cause a lot of people to lose buy-in to this system, and at the very least give them a refreshed perspective of where they fit into all this, right? Like leading to the obvious employment shakeups. It was super obvious. Been hating your job for 5 years? Quit. There are hundreds open right now around you everywhere. Think the way you're treated at work is unfair? Speak up. Tell your boss how you feel. Maybe go on strike. See if they're willing to roll the dice in this labor market right now. I mean, this isn't rocket science, folks, but I'll tell you right now, this is inherently a good thing. Now, the more the American worker is willing to test their luck and bet on themselves in a market that has dire need for labor, the more they are willing to demand better pay, benefits, and treatment, it will lift all boats. The supply's back is completely against the wall here. When you have all this backed up work that needs to be done, longshoremen, shipping, containers, real work, right? And when I say real work, I'm saying it's hard economic shit, hard economics positions, right? People need to move things to places to get them somewhere, right? This isn't finance. This isn't fake numbers on a sheet making profit off of speculation, right? This is the real economy, folks. The real economy that if it does not move, you will not be able to fucking buy things, okay? Now, this year, it's been an absolute shock to the terrible pattern of labor's complacency in the face of the domineering corporate overlords, and you gotta love to see it. This may not have been anyone's intent. We may have only seen a modest increase in pay across the board, with some making out well, such as I believe it's the 14% average increase in hospitality wages this year, that's great. That's good for those people. They earned it. But as long as the dysfunction in the supply chain remains obvious for all to see and workers continue to buck the saddle being tied to their backs, labor's fortunes have nowhere to go but up. And I know a lot of this language can feel uncomfortable at times, guys, for some people who are, not as initiated around this type of talk, people who've never really been in a union, or, just folks who never really experienced or seen anything like this. You know what I mean? Maybe you never had anyone in your family that spoke this way about things, or this is your first instance of it. And I don't even mean me talking. I'm saying like watching this happen, because it can be scary for some people because, you're turning on the TV, CNN, MSNBC, or Fox, they're having all these people on that are like, oh, holy shit, there isn't going to be any Christmas toys on the shelf, and it's like, a lot of people will directly correlate that with, oh, well, people look, because these guys aren't going to work. And it's like, well, no, that would still be an issue even without those problems, because everyone forgets like millions of people died more than would have all around the world. Tens of millions of people died more than would have normally. So like that, it takes a toll. Okay. I know that when we talk about the scope of, however many billion people there are in the world, and then you compare like, oh, there are only that many deaths. Like, yeah, but it's just like with a lot of the other topics that we've talked about, right? Like talking about childcare and decisions that people made in their families. Again, roll back to that episode 14. One person's fate or their roll of the dice in life changing can ripple out and affect a lot of people around them. You know what I mean? There's so many different ways that we all interconnect and touch each other, whether it be grandparents helping with grandchildren, some people going back to work, and then them stepping into that role rather than, coming out of retirement and being like a nurse or something. But, New York State, for example, is trying to grab a bunch of nurses out of retirement. All the states are. If there's no child, if you can't afford childcare, that's one less nurse that's going to be able to line up for that. You know what I mean? It's all interconnected. But what I want, again, back to my earlier point, I know these types of actions can make people feel uneasy, but it's only because we've been conditioned by fear from an uneven playing field to see it and immediately feel risk aversion. Like you're watching all this stuff happen. You're hearing people talk about labor action and strikes and folks standing up and, demanding their due. And we're conditioned, like almost like Pavlovianly, like to feel, like to see that and associate it with like you're standing on the edge of the cliff, like, ooh, it's dangerous. But what everyone has to realize here is the American worker hasn't had an opportunity to strike with the metal this hot in a long time. No pun intended. But the more corporations see visible evidence of workers bucking the status quo when all the leverage is on the side of the wage earner due to these various market conditions, this is the safest time to actually make your voice heard and demand what you're owed for your contributions. And best of all, these are industries seeing record profits right now. So they can more than afford to compensate you more fairly, because if they don't, that money, if you don't, I shouldn't say if they don't, if American workers do not successfully extract their just due from these people, that money is likely just going to go right back into stock buybacks, golden parachutes for CEOs, and fucking dividends. Okay? Go look up whatever industry you work in. Not your company, but look in the industry. Just overall, get a good idea. There's been a lot of money been being made across this time. I know it seemed like, because we were all home, a lot of shit that wasn't happening. People weren't going places. Money was being spent. Don't forget, even if you weren't laid off or unemployed, there were millions of people who were making more money than they ever had in their lives for a long time on unemployment. That money got spent. Some of it got saved, but it got spent. And what do you do in a consumerist economy? You buy shit you don't need for the most part. And that is a lot of what happened. But also, people spent up on, better quality food, all kind of stuff. But the whole point is it went into these industries. They profited from all of this. So as much as you hear all the crying of, oh, we're having a hard time with workers, blah, blah, blah. Don't forget, a lot of these corporations made the most money they've ever made on the books when you look at it, proportionally for what the dollar is worth today and, their profits, etc. So to not demand your fair slice of the pie at this moment is doing a disservice to yourself and all the hardworking people personally who've earned it. Okay? That is all I wanted to say on that specific topic, but I do want to roll into sorry, I just want to freestyle on this for a minute because I was sort of thinking about it. I really wish I had Pat around right now, or anyone to bounce off of with this and sort of see if they can test, to bounce off my theory on this. But it came out today that Joe Biden's holding meetings between moderates and progressives, right? And I was talking to my wife about this when she was getting ready in the bathroom earlier this morning. And I was like, it really is. It's really sorry. I mean, you guys have obviously seen, I'm talking about the reconciliation bill, right? The most important thing in Congress that's been going on for months now. And, I see like Mehdi Hassan on Twitter, an MSNBC anchor, tons of people just like throughout the last couple of weeks just be like, where's Joe Biden? Where the fuck is this guy? And, he's got, he supposedly was having these meetings on the Hill today. And I believe he has a town hall coming up on Thursday with Anderson Cooper. But I was sort of talking to my wife. I was like, this is a moment where I was thinking about it. I was like, man, you know what? Like if Hillary Clinton was president, and anyone who knows me personally knows, like, yeah, I did not want her to be president. You know what I mean? 2016, Trump was terrifying, all that blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, like I know a ton about politics and a lot of the bad shit she's done in her career. I just thought like, hey, they both suck. This isn't great. But I'll tell you what, if Hillary Clinton was president right now during all this shit going on and this reconciliation package was trying to go through, and Joe Manchin and Kirsten Sinema, I've been here for one term. Sinema was trying to stand in the way of her. Hillary Clinton would have snapped their fucking spines in half and drank the fluid from their bone marrow. Okay? She would have found a way to threaten them with something. She would have sent her fucking goons out and dug up some ungodly shit. And here's the thing, right? There is ungodly shit on Biden dug up. Sinema's just doing it out in the open. But the point is, Biden isn't willing to threaten them with it live in front of people. He's probably, I can't speak for. I don't know the man's heart. I don't know what he's doing when he does speak to them. I do know that there were a bunch of reports last week that, Kirsten Sinema wasn't taking his phone calls. I mean, because here's the thing, folks, right? Like, let me set the framing for you on this. Like, he is the president that won in their party. Now, Sinema certainly seems like she might be trying to set up some sort of a pivot to be a Republican, which is probably going to be her only hope, considering that, she's polling like absolute dog shit in Arizona within her own party. But, it really got me to thinking, like, man, like, Joe Biden's looking, this is, in my opinion, this is why his poll numbers are so low. Obviously in earlier episodes, I attributed some of the hits to his poll numbers to obviously the Afghanistan. The coverage of that pullout was just terrible for him. Like, there was no way he was coming out of that without just dropping 5 points, like, immediately after like the first 2 weeks of that. And then even once Democrats sort of circled wagons around him, it never really recovered. There's been a litany of things. Some people have dinged him in polls on his handling of the coronavirus, blah, blah, blah. But I think that there's like a big part of it is like, he's not being aggressive. Like, I feel like people forget at the end of those primaries, he did it in some parts with Trump, but not so much. But in the Democratic primary, when he ended up winning after, Obama's fucking made those calls and, threatened folks and told people they'd get some things, blah, 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 allegedly, widely reported, but never completely confirmed by Obama. Biden was aggressive. You know what I mean? And I think that's sort of, like, you remember the video where he was like yelling at the fucking, the oil worker, like he was at like an oil rig thing, platform. And the guy was telling him like, oh, you're going to take my guns. And Biden got all in his face. Remember the one town hall where the guy was telling him that he, I don't even remember what he was accusing him of, but the guy was basically like, hey, I'll tell you what, I'll do push-ups right now. Like, got all aggro and shit. Where is that Biden? You know what I'm saying? I think that's why his poll numbers are down, because he looks weak. You got Kirsten Sinema prancing around Capitol Hill, looking like she got dressed in the dark, grabbing like with a wardrobe from Hot Topic, just prancing around, taking pictures, out at brunch with the camera zooming in on a little fuck you on her ring, flying to Europe to do fundraising. I don't know why she's fundraising in Europe. I don't even know. She's stunting on you. She's stunting on you, Biden. She's flexing on you. Okay, this isn't even her like doing it to Schumer, because Schumer ostensibly is like her direct supervisor or whatever, because, he whips his caucus. She's in the Senate. He's the Senate majority leader. But no, she's stunting on you, my man. Like, that's you. That's your name she's dragging through the mud. And he's not doing shit about it. You know what I mean? Bernie just apparently had some meeting with Manchin's not really the problem here, because at least Manchin is willing to, like, he at least talks in the media. Like, Sinema's straight up like Derrick Henry stiff arming the entire party, like, 5 yards away. Like, fuck you. So it really just, the whole point I'm getting at here, guys, is I really feel like there's a key piece of political strategy being missed out here by Biden's strategist. I wouldn't expect him to come up with this, because he's a very, he's baked into he's an establishment guy, right? He's been in the party for so long. He's a figure. He was a senator for a long time. He's been a politician the majority of his life, right? But I don't know how none of his strategists, especially a lot of young people, I know there's a lot of young folks in the Democratic Party that are certainly advising him and people around him. I don't understand how they're not harnessing the power of all this shit that we were just talking about in the episode. Hundreds of thousands of people on strike. He should be taking this, going to these things. Like, he already, I gave him credit in the past that, he's said more about labor than any president in my lifetime. That's including Barack Obama, Clinton certainly wasn't saying shit about labor. But, you know, he's already sort of positioned himself as like, hey, you know what? You know, he's endorsed the PRO Act, for example, a bunch of other good legislation. He's spoken positively about labor and unions. So lean into that, right? You have all this energy right now in the country. I'm not even saying like, okay, maybe he doesn't even really mean it that much, but at least be, like I said, be like Hillary Clinton, be Machiavellian about it. Like, do this shit cynically and go around all these big visible strikes, right? Go there, show up, fucking roll up on a goddamn helicopter and land right out front of the John Deere and go, you know, take some pictures, have a fucking press conference with all those machinists all around you and everything, and be like, hey, you know what? I'm here, I'm supporting these people, and I would like to support them even more with the Build Back Better reconciliation package that I'm trying to pass through in Congress. And then you start fucking naming Sinema and Manchin. And then you do the same goddamn thing and you start flying into their states. Anywhere someone's on strike, workers, blue collar people that make shit. You know what I mean? But bring back, play on that. That's, you know what I mean? That's what old school, all these old fucks in America that voted for you, that's what they like in the first place, man. Play it up. I don't get it. It seems like a huge missed opportunity because you need to figure out a way to craft a new narrative around all of this. It's sort of just, it's been stagnating for too long, right? Yeah, it really seems like it's been extremely ineffectual, and there really doesn't seem to be any like larger chess move here. You know what I mean? Like when Obama, this sort of happened in Obama's presidency too, a couple times, where, you know, his advisor would be like, oh, this is 3-dimensional chess. You know, you can't possibly fathom the moves we're making. Like, no, there's none of that happening here. None of that's happening here. And it's completely evidenced by the fact that if there was some like larger plan at play here, you know, Bernie wouldn't be needing to step in and and not even be Biden's attack dog. Like literally, like he's just his own, like mercenary right now, like coming at Manchin and Sinema. So that's the evidence right there. Like there is no grand strategy here at play. Like this is literally just this guy's out for ice cream while Sinema is just like filing her nails, you know, in like burning $100 donor bills. Like and like live streaming it to her constituents. Like she's just telling everyone to just fuck off. But yeah, that was all I wanted to say about that. I wanted to connect that because I really do feel like it's a huge missed opportunity. It's definitely where the most energy is in the country right now. And it would actually be, it's detrimental for him to not find a way to sort of jujitsu that into what his package is, because, you know, that package would help all these people who are on strike. You know, the PRO Act would help them. Like he has things he can push. So, and, you know, I say this because there's historical precedent. You know what I mean? FDR did a lot of the same shit. He straight up told a lot of these, you know, the workers, the people out on the street demanding shit. He was like, yo, make me do it. You know, make noise. You know, sign on to show that you have buy-in for what these plans to move through Congress are for. And then I can help you, but I need that extra energy, you know. But that's the thing, though, right? It's Biden's job to figure out a way to, you know, kill two birds with one stone here. And it's really just not happening, man. So I don't know. That is all I have on this. I just want to hit you guys with some quick content. Me and Patter should be on at some point this week. We got something already planned that fell through last week. But yeah, like I said, I just put something together for you folks. Now, as I said before, if you appreciate the content, go to the YouTube page, subscribe. You know what I mean? We need to start getting these numbers pumped up here. As I said before, it'd be great if I can get someone to help me with production, editing, and the such. It would really help me put out more volume. I have a lot of stuff coming up that I can tease right now. Like I said, I already gave you Omar at the top of the episode. He's going to be on soon. I'm going to be reaching out to a couple other gentlemen. I'm really hoping I can get Carl Williams on. We had him booked for an interview. That is the gentleman that's running for Schenectady City Council. But he had his baby, so we had to cancel that. And I also have a lot of stuff going on with Citizen Action right now around the good cause legislation that we're going to be seeing a legislative push coming here in Schenectady for that soon. They just passed it in Albany not that long ago. So a lot of interesting stuff coming down the pike, folks. But I need your help. I need your support. If you appreciate the content, you know, all those things I said before. Also, I will be putting in the bio for probably, I'm going to see if I can put it. I'm going to have to do it individually. The YouTube and the Facebook page where you can support a lot of the strike action that's going on around the country. For example, like the John Deere workers, the company is sort of holding out right now, and they're actually, I believe they're due. The company is going to revoke their health insurance from them, their benefits near the end of the month. So if this continues on, that means their families won't have insurance. If this is something you care about, support it however you can. I'm going to be putting some links in. I believe there were QR codes and things like that. I saw a lot of the strike leaders from these various unions on Twitter. I will put those in the bio.